Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. It is Sunday, so we are doing our faith-based episode today. It's a big tool in my toolbox. I'm Mary Fran Bontempo with my buddy Kristen Smedley, and we have one of our favorite buddies with us today, Miss Robyn Graham from Robyn Graham Photography, from Four Chicks Chatting, from ebooks and personal branding and all sorts of stuff that she does, as well as Mama to Three and just a really wonderful friend of ours, and also a very faith-based person. So we wanted to invite Robyn onto the program to talk about that aspect. She's done some amazing things, especially in the last few years with her business, and I know faith has been a big part of that. So welcome, Miss Robyn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you here. So let's just jump right into this. You have, in the past couple of years, we've all watched, the three of us have watched each other's journeys, and we have done things that I think all three of us would agree we never expected ever to do. I mean, in terms of, I won't go to the, well, I will go to the no sweating line, but we'll leave we'll leave the origins of that. We'll leave the origins of the no sweating line alone for a minute, and just suffice it to say that happened when we made Robyn do stuff that she was very uncomfortable doing. But I think in each of those things that we did, and I would say probably you've done, there was that leap of faith, and that's become like a secular expression. But I think for the three of us, it's still very much grounded in spirit. So how did that faith part carry you through all these changes that you just, I know you were dying through some of them, but you went and did some amazing stuff. So tell us what you've done and how the faith part worked in there.
Oh my gosh, so many things. And I have to say that, I mean, you guys both know, and maybe some of your listeners know a little bit about my backstory. I don't know, but I have had anxiety my whole entire life, and pretty severe at times. And my faith has always been what I had to fall back on. You know, I couldn't depend on someone else walking me through it. I had to have that strength from within. And so, you know, prayer, reciting Bible verses, using those as mantras really kind of became my go-to in terms of finding that inner strength that would push me forward.
Yeah, I as someone who experienced anxiety and depression my whole life too, I think a lot of times I went in that direction out of desperation because I just didn't know what else to do. Like there's no rational explanation a lot of times for the level of anxiety that you feel. And so it was just kind of like, okay, God, you got to help me because I don't know what to do with myself anymore. Like, I don't know what to do to calm this down. So sometimes for me, it was just that. It was just pray, and then hopefully the anxiety lessens enough where then you can make a move to do something, to change things.
Yeah, almost clear the mind. Like I needed that. Like, it's almost like, okay, I need you to just take this and then let me think by myself for a second, you know, give me that clarity. But it was also that, you know, being able to be vulnerable too, like that's something that I had to really learn and then embrace. And I think my having faith allowed me to do that because I could put myself out there and I could think about it as I'm putting myself out there and people may judge me, but no matter what, as long as I'm living in accordance with my values and my faith, it's going to be okay. Because at the end of the day, if he's okay with what I'm doing, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
Well, now I'm wishing we had this episode 3 years ago because I paid my therapist an insane amount of money to tell me what you just said. Her whole thing was, it doesn't matter what that one toxic person, what you have in your mind of that person saying, it matters what God thinks. And then I was like, I'm such a slow learner, like equally slow learner. Because I was also the one that forever decided that I could pray things away. Like, I'm just going to pray so hard that this goes away. And the damn stuff never goes away.
That brings up a really valid point. You know, like, how do you cope with that? Because we are taught to pray. And I guess the question then becomes, what do we pray for? What are we praying for when we have those challenging situations?
So something my mom always said to me when I would be really frustrated, and she'd say, well, have you prayed about it? Yes, I've been praying every stinking day, all day long, and I'm not getting any answers. And I know I've heard Kristen say this too. It's like just this all out war with God sometimes. And it's like, all right, do I need to give you a punch to get you to listen to me? But it's that my mom always said to me, God didn't put us here for everything to be easy. There are going to be times of trials and tribulations, and that's how we're going to grow, and that's how we're going to learn, and that's how we're going to then be able to serve other people. And that's just kind of something I've always had to fall back on, because I mean, I'll pray for things and pray for things. And, you know, even I can tell you, we really have to listen, but we have to listen to in a way that is not necessarily with our ears. You know, sometimes it's our eyes. Sometimes it's just interactions with other people that God uses to speak to us. And I can tell you one example, and you guys both know that I have had a book kind of in my back pocket for several years. And I've been sitting on this thing. And part of that is fear, you know, and part of it is, well, who am I to write this book? Mm-hmm. What do I know? And I heard something this week, and so I have been praying about this for, I don't know, a couple of months. God, give me some direction. I need to know where I'm supposed to be going. What am I supposed to be doing? Who am I supposed to be serving? And I know from a brand marketing strategy perspective, from a photography perspective, from my podcast perspective, I know who my audiences are, right? Mm-hmm. But there's been something tugging on me, and I'm like, what is it? So someone said to me the other day, do you need a certification to be able to do something? Do you need to invest thousands of dollars and have a certification to call yourself a certified whatever or an author on this subject? No, you don't. If you have lived through life's experiences, you're an expert. You're an expert in whatever that is.
And I was like, to that, boy.
I was like, oh, okay. So then, I don't know if you guys have Google Alerts, but I have Google Alerts, because then if I submit for articles for publication, sometimes people don't get back to you. So then you can at least see it come up in Google Alerts. So I have Google Alerts. Well, the other day, my name came up, and I have it for our whole family. And so it's absolutely hysterical, the things that come up. I'm like, were you there? You know, but anyway, so this came up, and it literally, and I'm not even kidding you, it was Robyn Graham, an author, has something amazing coming out soon.
Stop it.
No way.
Like, what? Why do you get
I'm not even kidding you.
Answers? That's very specific.
That's a pretty specific answer.
I sent it to John, and John, I show it to my husband, and he's looking, and he's like, and the person's name was like Akbar something. Like, I don't even know if it's a real person. And it just had this little smiley face thing, like an emoji right there. That was it. And it said this was from Google Alerts. I'm like, I am not even kidding you. I showed it to John, and he's like, Akbar, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. What I'm telling you is, I think this is my message, to get that book written. And he's like, yeah, I think you probably need to stop putting it off. But anyway,
oh my God.
So God sends you a Google alert, for the love of God.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, now the flip side of that is, am I reading too much into that? So that's when that doubt comes into play too. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, but you know what?
We have to, but you made the point earlier. We have to listen. We have to be, God's not going to do it for us. He's not going to put, he's not going to put your hands on the computer keyboard. He's not going to do any of that. But if he gives you a message like that, that's the message you need to listen to. And I'll tell you a story that this happened to me, and I swear to God, nobody believes it. So when I was first starting with all of this stuff, I had a speaking gig. It was down the shore. It was for some little group of an Italian club or something like that. And I think it was the first book. I think it was the Granny Panties book. So I was kind of just starting out on this whole path. And you know how frustrating that is. So I'm ranting. Poor Dave. God love the poor man. He's driving me down the shore, listening to me rant and rave about how stupid all this is. And why am I doing this? And this is so dumb. And I'm never going to make any money as a writer, and blah, 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 like all the way down the Atlantic City Expressway. So we're driving, and we came up to one of the toll things where cars are maneuvering in front of you and all. And I swear to God, this car pulls in front of us, and the license plate on the car said writer B, with the letter B.
Uh-huh.
And I was like,
alrighty then.
Alrighty then.
Okay, I'll shut up now. And that was it. I was like, I think this is my really big cosmic slap in the head. So you do. And yeah, I mean, yes, could we say we're reading something into it? Well, maybe, but why not read something into it? Especially if it's something positive that gets you to put some of your brilliance out there.
But it also had the smiley face. That was so you. She signs her emails with smiles.
Yeah, you do.
Hello.
I do.
That was so sent for you. Are you kidding me?
It was just uncanny. So yeah, so I am, and it's funny because every day for the past, I don't know, week and a half, I've had book on my to-do list, and I just find a million other little things to do. And then that came through and I'm like, I can't keep putting this off.
Because it's a book that should come out right now. It's going to help so many people.
I think you're right. Gosh. It's that the time is now. I need to do it. And, I feel like too, for so many years, I lived in my faith, but I didn't share that because I was afraid of what other people would think. I was afraid that I would be judged, that I'm some kooky Jesus freak, and the bottom line is I've had Jesus in my back pocket forever. I mean, that's just how I was raised. And now I can share that. And I feel like I've been given these platforms and I need to use them. And so, like the book, it was, initially going to be one thing in one direction, but now I feel like all these little messages, even, through my daily devotions. And I think you guys, Kristen, I think you have at least Jesus Calling. Have you?
Yeah, I'm back to reading.
Yeah, I read those every day too. Yeah,
I love them. And sometimes the message is there, but the Bible verses, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect to use here. And this is perfect. So it's kind of been for the past year, all these little things have been building. And I guess I just have to now follow that lead instead of putting it on the back burner. But I think throughout my life, I've done that over and over again. And my dad always said, when he was dying of cancer, he said, if I can bring one person to faith, I will have done my job.
Wow.
And wouldn't you know, he did. But the other thing he said was that, we're put here on earth, and he was a journeyman lineman for Illinois Power. And he said, you know how I wear a tool belt every single day to work? I'm God's tool.
Wow.
To serve other people and teach other people. And he did. Every nurse that came in, they'd see him reading his Bible. He'd tell them what he read, all these little things. So I think that no matter what faith you're in, if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you just believe in some other power, I mean, for me, it's Christianity. For me, it's Jesus. But for anybody out there, I think that you can't really live a life of hope if you don't have something to believe in.
Yeah.
And that has always kind of been my fallback. Like, at least with this, I can have hope. I can have hope that there's something bigger and greater to reach someday.
You say you have hope. I say I get to use blame, because I say to God, I'm giving it to you. If it gets screwed up, it's all your fault.
I say that all the time. Look, I've done as much as I can with this. It's on you now. Sorry, it's on you. What you gave me, I did the best with it. Now it's on you.
I kind of say that about my kids. It's like, look, I don't have anything left. I've raised these boys to this point. They're yours.
I'm out. Robyn out.
I said 20 years ago in my big surrender speech to the big man. I was like, all right, fine. You want to do this twice? You want to do this? You do this. I'll be your little vehicle. I'll take them where they need to go. You bring me all the people, but if they end up screwed up, that's on you, man.
That's on you. It's on you. You said something that we have heard over and over and over again. You talked about a tug. And we have heard that. I mean, literally that word from different people about feeling this tug, feeling like there's something else that I need to be doing. There's something else that I'm supposed to be saying or using my awareness and all that kind of stuff for. And I think it's so important to pay attention to that. First of all, you have to pay attention to it because it doesn't leave you alone.
No, it doesn't. It just keeps pulling and pulling, and it's kind of annoying.
It is annoying because you have to do something about it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's, I have to remind myself, because I'm like, I don't have any expertise. I don't have what I think it takes for this, but those are my perspectives. And God is not going to call me to do something that he is not going to give me the qualifications to do, right? He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So I just have to keep repeating that over and over in my head, that this will come out and it will be what he wants it to be. And it will serve the audience he wants it to serve if I follow his guide. And, so sometimes I think too, as Christians, we kind of were like, oh, Jesus, oh God, but we kind of forget about the Holy Spirit. And I think he's really kind of the vehicle for everything that we do. So there are a lot of days I'm like, Holy Spirit, you better come in today. Like I need some strength. I need some guidance, and I know it's your job to do that. So get in here.
I need you to show up.
About that one. We always forget about the Holy Spirit. And that's the one that's probably interfering on all of the screaming that I do. Maybe, the Holy Spirit's like pushing it back so that the heavens don't have
so God doesn't smite you.
But I'll tell you this, I had that the keynote that I do now that I'm turning into a book series about faith, I had that whole message in me since the TED Talk 3 years ago. And I wanted to put it out there, but so many times it's like, are people going to turn their nose at this? Plus, for the longest time when people were saying you have to get that message, that part of your story out there, I kept thinking, who am I to stand there and say, oh, look how God has blessed me. And, oh, I'm a woman of faith when I kind of suck in a lot of areas, right? And people are going to be like, oh my God, have you heard her scream at her kids? Oh my God, do you hear how she talks to the dogs? You have to, like, who am I, right? And then, but what you just said came in my Instagram feed, something similar to what you just said about he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. That came through and I was like, okay, I think that I just need to put this out there. And people say you suck and you shouldn't be giving this message. Great. Then I'll just go, I don't know, do dog videos on TikTok with my dogs. I'll be great at that. And when I did it for the first time at the Young Women's Leadership Conference at Villa, I think every single speaker came to me and said, you have got to give that message. Nobody felt comfortable talking about their faith anywhere. And they kept saying, but we need to talk about it. And that's you should do it like that. Cause I basically, first I had to tell jokes because the technology wasn't working. So that was fun. And then I was like, by the way, I am so not qualified to give this, but I'm going to tell you what happened to me. And that's all I did was say what happened in my life and how many things I screwed up and then got resolved. And it has resonated. And now I'm going to do it in, even my kids, they saw me do it live on Holy Thursday and they were like enthralled by the whole story. And now it's going to be.
I think that's it though. I think that we stop ourselves because we feel like according to what society dictates, you have to have a degree, you have to have a this, you have to have a that. And the truth of the matter is you don't. You have to have your life experiences and you have to be willing to share that. And I think people have a hesitation sharing faith because they don't want to be seen, like you said, Robyn, like a Jesus freak or whatever. But when you're just telling your story and you're going, hey, I can't put a name on what it was that got me through. Like you said, for me, it's Jesus. For me, it's whatever. But call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter what we call it. There is a greater force. There's a greater good. There's a greater energy that wants what's best for us. And when you turn yourself over to that, even if the best that you get that day is a place to rest your head because you can't do it for another minute, whatever else it is, that's enough. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of message that needs to be shared. I mean, gosh, when I was going through stuff with David, like there were days where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm shutting down for however long I need to make sure he's okay. You're on watch now. Yeah. That's on you. Yeah. But you just need a place to rest your head,
Kind Christians, me and Mary Fran, we're so good to God. We just really are. We're so motivating for him to help us.
Funny. So, but you said something, Kristen, too, and it's that concept of who do we think we are to give this message. And people are going to judge us no matter what. And if you're having any resemblance of success, they're going to hate you. I mean, that's just how it is. But to me, when that happens, you know, you're on the right track because you're hitting home with a message, you know, and that's what you have to keep remembering. And the other thing is too, is, you know I'm not perfect, and I know I do a lot of things that are certainly not, you know, living exactly how God would want me to live. But I have grace. And that's the other important thing to remember, is that, you know, if we believe, then we have that grace, and he sees our potential so much greater than we see our potential. But we really need to give ourselves that grace to be able to accept that he sees us in the way that he thinks we have everything it's going to take.
Yeah. I think we're all the prodigal son or daughter. If we can recognize that we're all that in some degree every single day, but that God welcomes the prodigal son or daughter back every time with open arms and with a feast and all that, then it's easier to just go, okay, you know what, God, I'm really sorry. I screwed that up today. I screwed it up really bad. I'm sorry. And God goes, it's all right. It's okay. You got tomorrow. You're okay. That's the way it feels to me. So I'm sorry, what were you going to say,
No,
Kay?
go ahead, keep going.
No, I was going to just say to Robyn, I want to talk a little bit about how your faith figured into all the stuff that you've done over the last couple of years, because none of this was in your comfort zone. You're doing your own podcast now. You've been writing ebooks. You're doing branding, like stuff that first of all, let's tell people's background. You were a pharmacist. Right? You have a doctorate in pharmacology. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's like...
So, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, the smartest person in this interview.
The smartest person out of the three of us is Robyn.
So, no, I wouldn't say that, but...
yeah, you can, because it's true. We own it. We just totally own that we're battling.
We're fine with that. We're fine.
I'm a real nerd at heart. I really am. I am such a nerd. Like we have these dinner time conversations, and Josh is in chemical engineering and John's got his doctorate as well. And Sam Gracie's a little young and she's just like, oh, again. And Sam, who is, you know, the creative and history buff and going into sports management, he's like, have a beer for this one. You know, I mean, it's like, it's crazy, but, no, I think that, first of all, like I said earlier, I had to accept vulnerability. And that was something that, because of anxiety and that fear, I wasn't able to do my whole entire life. And, you know, 9 years ago, when our life was insane and we were seeing our oldest start to exhibit serious signs of anxiety, it kind of was a wake-up call, because I thought, I don't want him to live the way I've lived. I mean, it was miserable. Like, honest to goodness, there were some days that, it was bad. So, John and I made a decision that I wasn't going to continue on in the career that I was working on. We were both having to travel, and it was very time intensive, but it was very stressful too. And, you know, when you're working at that high level, and the stress and the demands and the legalities and all of those things, it doesn't just stay within you. It stretches out to your entire family and your entire world. So we made the decision that I was going to follow my passion, because I can't just sit at home. I have the utmost respect for stay-at-home moms, but I can't do it. I have to have a challenge, and I have to work. I have to use what's in my head. So we just made that decision, and it was like the whole time. And I say this because I think some of this calling and this pull and this tug started way back then, and I ignored it. I didn't know what to do with it. I was too afraid to really and truly put myself out there. So it's just been this transformative time where I've, you know, learned the process of journaling. I've learned the process of introspection and really diving into who I am as a person and what I do have the inner strengths to do and what I don't have, but I've seen God provide for me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's been a journey. Like, that's really all I can say. And it's just been a transformation of overcoming fear, being able to cope and create coping mechanisms to get over the anxiety, and then using the gifts that I've been given. I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I mean, really, that's the only thing I can say.
So it's basically and I think this is true of almost every journey, whether we acknowledge it or not, you're basically putting one foot in front of the other and going, okay, God, if you want me to do this, fine, I'll do it. You just got to kind of show me the way, because like clearly you've given me something that you want me to put out there. So I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other and just try. And if you fail at it, well, then what? Then what do you think if you fail at it?
Well, then I'll learn from those experiences and I'll
Right.
pivot. I'll try something new, or I'll shift directions. And I think the one thing that we often, and I mentioned grace earlier, and I think the one thing that we often forget is, we see these evangelists, there's women out there who they are preaching, God's word, and they are trying to convert everybody to become a Christian, and they're on that big stage and they're doing their thing. And it's intimidating when you're down here, and you don't have those same skills or that same drive to be on those stage, or you're too intimidated to be on the stage. But I think the reality is that every opportunity God puts in front of us to be face to face with another human being, we have an opportunity to witness. We have an opportunity to share our values and our faith and our love and our kindness. And every single time we do that, we're impacting someone and we're sharing his message. So sometimes it's just simple as smiling at that person at the grocery store checkout line who's having a really crappy day. And the fact that you smiled shows that you're a good person.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you say that, because part of me getting into this, I need to get this message out there, was so many people 3 years ago, you guys know all the muck I was in, were saying, that knew the whole story, or no one knows the entire madness, but whatever. They were like, people would say, you are still smiling. You're still standing. Like, how do you get up every day? How do you deal? And I'm like, and that's when I actually have the book here from Max Lucado. I went into a church group. It was like my friends at the church they didn't know everything going on, but somebody just came to me and said, hey, I think that you would enjoy this group. And it was like the saving line for my life, the lifeline. But people would say, why are you so happy? And I'm like, honestly, at this point, I am 1000%. It is all on faith, because I had nothing left in anything that I could do of my intelligence, my experience, my friends, my network, nothing was working. I could only rely on faith. And I'm like, that's when I started joking, like, well, if I blow up, it's because it's his fault, because now I'm relying solely on him. And that's when but I think I say that that's when the Max Lucado group came into my life. But honestly, and I've said this to my friends in the rare disease community, that because a lot of people that are living with really hard things can be very bitter, and they feel like God has turned his back, right? But my thing is, when you have even an inkling of faith and a little bit in there, you start to look, I always say, look with hopeful eyes. You look with hopeful eyes, you listen with hopeful ears, and you start to see those little cracks in the door. That's all you need, that door is going to open at some point, as opposed to beating on the wrong door. And I feel like for me, that's one of the biggest things in faith is the teeny tiny little piece that makes you keep going that day. And then eventually the big thing happens. But it was so many people saying, how are you doing this? Well, faith is.
I think that's the beauty of it. I think we talk about being afraid to put our faith out there, but that's because the examples that we have are those people who are on those big stages, And first of all, that's not what we're comfortable with in terms of getting up and doing that. But not everybody wants to be hit over the head with a faith message. So I think you're both right. Those small little things that we can do that turn towards God and show other people that we're turning towards God every day, that's your witness to faith for that day.
You guys know my grandmother just passed away a couple weeks ago. And the one thing, so she lost my grandfather in her 70s. Then she lost my father. She lost 3 of her sisters, all to cancer. My grandfather was, he was diabetic, so that was heart disease. But her other son, my uncle, who was her oldest son, had type 1 diabetes that he was diagnosed with at 4, and they didn't think he'd live past 25. And he just died last, I think August maybe. And he was 73 or 74. Wow. So lived this remarkable life. But by the time he died, he was blind. He had both legs amputated. His kidneys were failing. He had heart failure. Like, and you would look at that and anybody else would think, my God, there's no quality there. But he was so happy. He never complained. And then, you know, when he ended up dying, my grandmother was still alive, and my aunt at the same time. So all three of her kids, she had a brain tumor. And when it came back and she had to have surgery again, I said to my grandma, I said, Grandma, do you ever get mad at God? Like, you've lost so much. And her whole life was serving other people, physically taking care of other people. And she said, no, Robyn, I just pray more.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I have to take that message and I have to live it, because she never complained about anything. And I mean, you talk about loss. I mean, she lost, but she never looked negative on it. It was always, well, you know, I had them in my life and that was a good thing. And then she'd move on. And I'm not saying she was never sad or depressed or whatever, but she didn't live her life based on that. She lived her life based on faith and the hope that she had going forward. So I think that's just a good example of, you know, she was never going to talk about it out in public or on a stage. But, you know, when she was doing the church lady's hair in her basement beauty shop, they could talk about it. And then, you know, when you share your thoughts and your beliefs, I think you just gradually, like you said, it just trickles out. Little rays of hope.
Yeah, I love that. I love that
you just shared that story about your grandma, because I'm thinking about my grandmother, and she wasn't one to talk about, she didn't talk about Bible verses, but she went to church every single morning.
Yep.
One of the greatest, quiet, but greatest people I had still have ever met in my whole life. And it didn't even dawn on me that was a lifelong role model of quietly, like the quiet Christian, just being a good person and smiling all the time. Oh, that's wild. I hadn't
quiet examples of faith.
Yeah,
I think it's nice to look for those quiet examples of faith, because I don't like people screaming at me about what I should think. I would rather see somebody do good and know that there's a genuineness of spirit about that, and that attracts me. I don't want anybody saying, you need to think this way, it has to be this God, it has to be that. It needs to, those little signs are all around, and they're very often in the people that we're closest to, and even strangers. So
I do love, though, every now and again a really good, the really good loud preachers that can get fired up and going.
Praise Jesus.
Yeah. And I'm like when I was telling you guys before we started recording, I was mowing the lawn last week, and there was a preacher on, and I was screaming. But then I like my Max Lucado, who's real calm, and he just kind of talks to me off the ledge. Calm down, Kristen.
Sometimes you need a balance of preachers too. That's true. You need a balance of preachers. Okay, so tell everybody where we can find you. I can't believe we've used more than our half hour up already. So tell everybody where they can find you, because you have an amazing podcast called Second Act.
Second phase.
I'm sorry, the second phase.
Second phase, yeah. So
I'm sorry about that.
The podcast is the Second Phase Podcast, and it's available everywhere. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Robyn Graham. I can tell you I spend most of my time either within my Facebook group or on Instagram or LinkedIn. And there I'm Robyn Graham as well. And my website is actually, I have a new URL coming this week, and it's the Robyn Graham. So that is,
that's exciting.
Otherwise you can find me at robyngrahamphotography.com. That URL will always still work.
And you guys, she's Robyn with a Y.
Robyn
yes.
With a Y.
Yeah. And when the world opens up again, if you need branding pictures, this is your lady to call. All the pictures you see of Kristen and I were taken by Robyn, like virtually everyone.
Except for my giant coffee cup. That was
except for that one. Except for the stupid selfies that Robyn would have a fit because the lighting's bad. No, they're not taken by Robyn. Okay, everybody, thank you. This was a great discussion on faith, and
today.
It really was. It was a great day. So thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective on faith with us. Everybody, check out our buddy Robyn Graham at the Second Phase Podcast, which is all over the place. Check her out, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow on another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live.